Medieval castle. Night. A full moon illuminates a medieval castle in the middle of a forest. The castle looks abandoned and eerie at Great Hall. Night. A group of knights and soldiers sits around a large wooden table, drinking and laughing. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes through the hall. The knights and soldiers fall silent. Night 1. Did you hear that? Night 2. Unsheathing his sword, it's probably just a rat. The sound of footsteps grows louder and closer. Suddenly, a figure appears in the doorway. It's a young woman with a pale face and long black hair. The knights and soldiers stand up, their hands on their swords. Woman, whispering, "Help me, please. I need your help." The woman walks towards them, but as she gets closer, her face changes. Her eyes turn black, and her skin becomes ashen. Night 1. Alarmed, what kind of witchery is this? The woman lets out a blood-curdling scream, and the knights and soldiers run out of the great hall. Courtyard. Night. The knights and soldiers gather in the courtyard, catching their breath. They hear the sound of a horn, and turn to see a group of soldiers riding towards them. The soldiers wear the same colors as the castle's previous owners. Night 2. Unsheathing his sword, ready your weapons, men. We'll defend the castle. The knights and soldiers get into position, ready to fight. The sound of battle echoes through the night. Great Hall. Night. As the battle rages outside, the young woman reappears in the Great Hall. She walks towards the fireplace, where a book lies open. Woman, whispering, "Finally, the book is mine." The woman picks up the book, and a burst of energy emanates from it. The walls of the Great Hall begin to shake, and the castle's foundations start to crumble. Courtyard. Night. The knights and soldiers fight bravely, but they're outnumbered. Suddenly, the castle's walls collapse, and a bright light emanates from the Great Hall. Night 2. Alarmed, retreat. Retreat. The knights and soldiers run away from the castle, leaving it to crumble behind them. The end. Forest. Day. The knights and soldiers have regrouped in the forest, trying to catch their breath. They're all covered in dirt and blood. Night 1. Panting, what just happened back there? Night 2. Shaking his head, I have no idea. But I fear that we may have angered dark forces beyond our understanding. Suddenly, the ground beneath them starts to shake. They hear a loud roar, and turn to see a giant creature emerging from the castle's ruins. It's a dragon, with scales as black as night and eyes as red as fire. Night 1. Terrified, by the heavens, it's a dragon. Night 2. Unsheathing his sword, we have no choice but to fight it. The knights and soldiers charge towards the dragon, ready to fight for their lives. Castle ruins. Day. The battle rages on, with the knights and soldiers fighting the dragon with all their might. Suddenly, the young woman reappears, standing on top of the dragon's back. Woman, laughing maniacally at fools. You cannot defeat the dragon. It's under my control now. The woman points her finger at the knights and soldiers, and a burst of energy emanates from it. The knights and soldiers fall to the ground, paralyzed. Woman, whispering, you are mine now. Forever. The woman disappears, leaving the knights and soldiers at the mercy of the dragon. A forest. Days have passed since the battle at the castle ruins. The knights and soldiers are nowhere to be found. However, some say that if you listen closely, you can still hear their screams echoing through the forest. Days have passed since the battle at the castle ruins. The knights and soldiers are nowhere to be found. However, one day, a group of travelers come across the castle ruins. Traveler 1, disgusted, what a terrible sight. This castle must have been abandoned for centuries. Traveler 2, pointing to something in the distance, wait, what's that? The travelers see a figure walking towards them. It's one of the knights who fought at the castle ruins. Knight, weakly, please, help us. We were attacked by a witch who controlled a dragon. The travelers help the knight and his companions, and together they journey back to the nearest town hall. Day. The knight and his companions stand before the town council, recounting their harrowing experience. Knight, we were no match for the witch and her dragon. But we managed to escape with our lives, thanks to these kind travelers. Town council member, we cannot allow such dark forces to roam freely in our lands. We must gather our bravest knights and soldiers and rid this land of this witch and her dragon once and for all. the town council pledges to gather their forces and set out to defeat the witch and her dragon. And with the help of the knight and his companions, they finally succeed. The end.